Hi, and welcome to another episode of Rach Makes Other Stuff. Today, I'm going to show you how we make our sourdough bread. And the first thing we need to do is feed our starter because you need a really active starter before you can make your bread. This is our starter. Her name is Dippy. And we made bread last week. So I'm just going to transfer this over to a clean glass and get her fed. Okay, and then I have measured out a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. So I'm going to dump all of this in first and give it a nice stir. We actually bought this starter online and it came to us in a dehydrated form, and it took about 7 days of adding water and flour in various steps to get it rehydrated, but we love it, and it has allegedly been around since 1849 at the start of the California Gold Rush. Okay, so all the flour is mixed in, and now I have a 1/4 cup of filtered water. This water is slightly warmer than room temperature just because our starter came out of the fridge, and I feel like that helps her get active a little bit quicker than if everything was super cold. And then I'm just slowly adding the water until it's nice and incorporated. I'll do one more little splash. Okay, that is good. So this is really just, there's no right or wrong way to do this. The metric is that it needs to kind of be like slow lava. So when you tilt it, it's not running out of the glass, but it does have a little bit of movement to it. So that's all for right now. I am going to put a rubber band around the glass where we have the level of starter. You want your starter to either double or triple in size before you start your bread. So this will give us a visual indicator of how much it has grown. This will take anywhere from 6 to 8 hours, depending on how warm the environment is. And then I'm just gonna loosely cover it with this handy little rubber thing. And then I've got it on a plate because I'm actually gonna stick this in the oven with just the light on so that it's a little bit warmer and so she'll get active quicker. I don't necessarily need the plate, but in the event something were to go wrong and it overflow, I don't wanna have to clean the oven. So this is my safety net. So I'm going to the oven and then I'll see you guys back in 6 to 8 hours. Okay, it has been about 6.5 hours since we fed our starter. And as you can see, Dippy is nice and active. I marked the jar with the rubber band here, and actually it's deflated just a tad, but we're good to go. So in my bowl here, I have already measured out 75 grams of bread flour. We really like this King Arthur bread flour, but any bread flour will do. And to that, I'm gonna add 75 grams of filtered water. And just, give that a little mix. And so what we're doing now is making the leaven. And so the leaven is just flour, water, and our active starter. Okay, that's good enough for now. And then we just need 1 tablespoon of the active starter. And you can see in there how nice and bubbly it is. It smells delicious. I use this white spatula quite a bit because it's sturdy and rigid, but it also is narrow enough to get into small places. And I'm just trying to work in all the there's a couple little dry bits of flour on the side, and I just want to make sure everything is nice and incorporated. And so that's really simple, honestly. I've just mixed up the flour, water, and this active starter. And then I'm gonna cover this up again with another one of these rubber things. And now this is going to rest overnight. Again, if your kitchen is really cool, you can pop it in the oven with just the light on, or if your kitchen is a little on the warmer side, you can just leave it on the counter. So I'll be back in the morning for the next step. Okay, we're back. The leaven has been sitting overnight, and so let's take a look at it. It's nice and bubbly. It smells great. It's really active. So now we're gonna start the bread making process. To the leaven, I'm gonna add 475 grams of filtered water. And then I'm just gonna give this a really good stir to make sure that all of the big clumps of leaven are dissolved in the water. This is a very basic bread tutorial, but this is how we do it. I'm by no means an expert, but it works and the bread is delicious. We've shared it with lots of our friends and family and everyone loves it. Okay, that's nice and dissolved. I'm not seeing any clumps. So now it is time to add the flour. And here I have 700 grams of bread flour. You can do a mixture of bread, all-purpose, and wheat in whatever combination you like, but we think that the all bread flour recipe might be the best. There's really no right or wrong way to incorporate all this flour. You just need to get the flour in the bowl. I find that it's a little bit easier to add it in 2 or 3 large intervals. That way I'm not left with big chunks of flour on the bottom of the bowl. It's just a little easier to incorporate a little bit at a time. When Trav does it, he just throws it all in. So that's just further proving my point of there's really no right or wrong way to do this. It's hard to mess it up. All right, that's really coming together. I'm gonna switch over to this white scraper. And keep mixing. Okay, this is looking really good. All the flour is incorporated. There are no dry spots. And really what you're looking for at this stage is just a shaggy dough. It's gonna be sticky. It's sticking to my scraper. It's stuck to my fingers a little bit here. But that is exactly what you want. So I'm just gonna make this a little bit more ball shaped. And then I'm gonna cover it up again with my rubber cover and then let this rest. It needs to rest at least for 30 minutes, but it can rest up to 4 hours. So I'm gonna let this rest and we'll be back in a little bit. This has been resting for about 3.5 hours. So now we're ready to move on to the next step. I'm dissolving a tablespoon of salt in 50 grams of water. And then I'm gonna pour this over the dough and work the salt water into the dough. It's gonna be pretty slimy at first and a very loose dough, but once it starts to get a little bit sticky is when you'll know that you are done. Okay, so we have now entered the phase where we're gonna start folding the dough. And you're gonna wanna fold it 6 times over the course of 2.5 hours. So we just make a little checklist of the time and come in every 30 minutes and fold it. Actually, we actually set a reminder on our kitchen robot. Can't say her name because she'll respond to me, but we'll ask her to remind us every 30 minutes for 2.5 hours. So when you fold it, you generally wanna pull the dough across itself 4 times. So I'll pick it up, fold it across, and do a quarter turn. Pick it up, fold it across, quarter turn. And that's our first fold. as we go through the series of folds, you'll see it really come together into a super nice dough. Alexa, set a timer for 30 minutes.
30 minutes, starting now.
And then I'll come back and fold again. Okay. This is our fourth fold. You can see the dough has risen a lot. Sometimes we have stopped after 4 folds just because we were pressed for time, and the bread's turned out great. I'll go ahead and fold this the full 6 times, just because we have time today, and why not? There we go, number 4, done. All right, it has been about 30 minutes since I did the 6th fold, so now we are ready to shape our loaves. Ooh, look how big this got. Ta-da! Put a little flour on my board. And then I'm gonna turn this out. Woo, look at that. Gorgeous. You may be thinking that is a massive loaf of bread. It's not, it's 2. So now we are gonna cut this in half. And I'm just gonna eyeball this. And this part takes a little bit of finesse, but what you want to do is essentially use your scraper to turn the loaf, kind of tuck it under itself. And so this exposed edge right here, where I just cut it, you want to kind of shape it so that that goes underneath and that we have a nice smooth surface on the outside of the loaf. So here goes. Move this guy out of the way a little bit. And then this is gonna rest here on the board for a little bit, so I'm just adding a little bit more flour to the top and underneath so that it doesn't stick. All right, on to the next one. This is probably the trickiest part of making sourdough. You wanna get a tight, nice looking ball, but you also don't want to press all the air out of it. All right, that one's pretty round. Gonna flour this one up as well. There's a lot under there. So now I'm just gonna cover both of these with a bowl and let them rest for another 30 minutes. There we go. Our dough balls have been resting for about 30 minutes, and so now it's time to transfer them to our proofing baskets. These little proofing baskets we just got off of Amazon. Alrighty, number 1. And then I'm going to generously flour the proofing basket because you don't want it to stick. That'd be kind of worst case scenario, that your bread is stuck in the proofing basket. And be really generous. You can't really overdo it. Like so. And then all of our seams are on the bottom of this dough ball. So I want to pick it up and invert it into the proofing basket so that the bottom of our bread is this nice, so that the top of our bread is this nice smooth surface. And before I do that, I'm gonna flour the actual dough ball a little bit itself.
A lot of it.
And I switched to all-purpose flour for this because it's cheaper than the bread flour. And we've already built the structure of the bread with the bread flour, so we really don't need that specific flour anymore. All right, that looks floured enough. Here we go. A little flour on him. There we are. Number 2. So I've kind of coated the inside of the bowl, and then I'm gonna go back, or the basket I should say, with a little bit extra. Alrighty, and now we're just gonna cover both of these with plastic wrap, and they will go into the fridge overnight, and we will bake them in the morning. Good morning. It is finally time to bake our bread. First of all though, we need to get our oven preheated. We are gonna bake the bread in my Dutch oven, and you want to preheat the oven with your Dutch oven, the bottom and the lid inside, so that your Dutch oven is nice and hot when we drop the bread in. So I'm gonna get the oven fired up. Our oven is preheated to 500 degrees. The Dutch oven is in there with the lid on, so everything is nice and hot. I just took one of the loaves out of the refrigerator, and I'm going to invert it onto this parchment paper. Baking it on parchment paper, one, keeps the bread from sticking to the bottom of the Dutch oven. It also gives you a nice, easy way to drop the bread into the Dutch oven without burning yourself. So here we go. Perfect. If you want to brush off some of this excess flour, you can. It really doesn't matter one way or the other. And then we are going to score the bread with a lame. The functional purpose of scoring the bread is so that gas can escape from the bread in a controlled way. If you don't, the loaf will just break open at the weakest point, which kind of gives it a more rustic feel, I guess. But scoring the loaf of bread gives you an opportunity to give your loaf of bread a little bit of more an artistic look. So I'm just gonna make a slash here. And one thing I always notice is you can always go a little deeper with your slash. And then I'm just gonna make a couple little superficial cuts for a little artistic design. So with these superficial cuts, I'm not going very deep. You can make it look like little flowers, little leaves, anything you want. But the main slash here is where all of our gas is going to escape. Okay, now the tricky part, getting it in this 500-degree oven without burning myself. When Trav is here, we normally do that as a 2-person job. One person will open the oven, the other one will drop the bread in, but he's on a run right now, so I'm flying solo. So I'm gonna set my timer for 20 minutes and then come back and check on it. That 20-minute timer just went off, so the only thing I'm gonna do is reduce the oven temperature to 450 and let it bake for another 10 minutes. The 15-minute timer just went off, so now it's time to remove the lid. The lid is off, it looks amazing, and we're gonna bake it for a final 15 minutes just to get it some nice dark color on the outside. Oh my gosh, y'all, it smells so good. The bread is done, I'm gonna take it out of the oven, and let's see what it looks like. Ah, look at that, it's beautiful. It smells absolutely delicious. We'll get some close-up shots, but there you have it. There is our sourdough bread recipe. The full written recipe with all of the measurements and the timing is in the link below, so just click on over to check that out. It smells so good.